Welcome back, one and all. We have yet another episode of Kamen Rider Revice here. Yes, I am somewhat on time this week. A little off by a day, but, somewhat on time. Anyway, we have episode 23. Vice takes over. Betrayal after all. Right, so for those of you who need a refresher on last week's episode, which was essentially a giant Zero 1 tribute, Ikki and Vice were basically kind of forced into being the bodyguards of a pair of comedians, and they basically had to play detective and figure out who was the one who was sending dead men to attack them, or attack the studio in general. At the same time, Sakura was being basically tempted by Weekend, and Ikki received the mysterious new Vice stamp, the rolling Vice stamp. So Ikki, at the end of the episode, used it because Vice was having one of his GIF aches, and, well, it swapped them. So now Ikki's on the inside and Vice is on the outside. But not like a Kagero thing, as Ikki physically as Vice is physically outside and Ikki is physically stuck in his head. It's almost like a Kagero thing, although Daiji and Kagero use the same body. And I mentioned Kagero because he has an appearance in this episode, as revealed in the trailer. Anyway, the episode starts off following that ending with Daiji very concerned about where the hell his brother is, because obviously he transformed, but now he sees Vice and no Ikki. So, somewhat worried about that, he basically questions Vice, what the hell? Vice doesn't know what's going on either. So, in comes George, who basically doesn't know what's going on. He examines the rolling Vice stamp, basically concludes that it was designed by someone who's reaching his intellect. He wouldn't fully admit they are at his level, and he decides to take Vice in for a dissection to figure out what the hell. Vice decides to bail and leaves. So he's basically gone, and then does kind of a Ferris Bueller's Days Out kind of thing, where he's just playing around at an arcade, apparently spending all of Ikki's money to do it. As Ikki mentioned, stop spending my money! Which is kind of funny. Anyway, yeah, so Vice is just out hanging out, having fun. Ikki's stuck on the inside, basically trying to figure out what the hell, and stopping Vice was basically spending all his savings. And everyone's trying to figure out what the hell. At the same time, or at least sometime later, Sakura is met by the family, I forget what their name is, at the at the bathhouse, before the call goes out that the dead men are attacking. More specifically, Osaleta and, why am I forgetting his name? Osaleta and, and Aguilera are attacking. I forgot her name for a second. So Osaleta and Aguilera are attacking at the moment. Or more like, they're pulling... Okay, so for those who don't know Doctor Who, they're basically pulling a whole we attacked an area, now we're just sitting and waiting for our main enemy to show up thing. Because their mole in Phoenix, who is the doctor character, that female doctor character, basically tells them, hey, Vice is out, Nikki's on the inside, so he shouldn't be too much of a worry right now. And so they decide to try to get rid of, Daiji and Sakura. Or at least Osaleta wants to. Aguilera basically fights Sakura, quote-unquote fight Sakura for a minute, before telling her to take care of Julio. Because she's kind of worried about what happened to him, but she's being super tsundere, doesn't want to admit it. As well as, basically claiming that her only concern is Gift-sama. And Osaleta continues to be pretty damn strong, as she takes out Live and John. But as you remember, if you Rider Kick Live, guess who gets to come out? Kagero comes out, transforms into evil for 5 minutes, fights demons for a minute, before being Rider Kicked back into Daiji again. Which, that's kind of funny. It's like, hey, I'm back. I'll protect this woman because she makes curry. You owe me for this, and gets Rider Kicked right back in. I love the fact that the rider kicking Live and Evil is essentially their swap trigger, and how that's still kind of canon. it begs the question about some of the other fights Daiji's lost, but I don't think he's been like fully rider kicked in those fights, so I guess it doesn't count. Because we all know that the rider kicks for this series, because all the rider devices were at least somewhat designed by George, and how he basically designed them to be able to kick out demons with the rider kick. And so it makes sense why only riders, specifically rider kicking, can be the swap for Daiji and Kagero. Anyway, after that, Daiji and Sakura basically realize, oh wait, we figured out what Vice's deal is right now, and they find Vice, which honestly should be easy considering the fact he's a fucking demon who's, I'm assuming, he spent over 24 hours at this arcade spending Ikki's money. Yeah, so Vice only pretended to act a little bit mischievous or evil somewhat because he didn't want to be dissected, because this would also hurt Ikki. Yeah. But Ikki basically reminds Vice, hey, we have a job to be set to protect the comedians, and we go back to that plot line, and they continue the detective thing, and the person who's summoning the Deadmans, it's not two people, but it's the assistant character who was a fan of theirs, who I guess is attacking the other competitors so that they can have their spot. Her plan seems to be that, although I don't know how the threatening letters fall into her plan. Like, she wanted them to come back and be comedians, but from what we understand, their whole reasoning for dropping out has been because of the threatening letters. Like, it might be that I missed something because I wasn't that interested in the comedian plot line outside of the 0-1 references. But it feels like a half-baked mystery, if you ask me. Kamen Rider has done better mysteries before. Hell, I think the season's doing a better mystery right now with the whole gift thing. Anyway, so all that wraps up, but Ikki and Vice are still kind of, I mean, obviously there's a fight, but Ikki and Vice continue to question how they're going to fix this. But Ikki basically saying, hey, we can figure this out as long as we're together. Although next week's episode proves that might not be the case. So yeah, the two are still trying to fix this, and the episode wraps up with Sakura going back to Weekend's base. I still love their name and that joke. And she meets the mysterious leader of Weekend, Kirazaki, who is giving me a lot of Shroud vibes. Like very big Shroud vibes. And I question why. But yeah, this Karazaki is a leader of Weekend, who's also in charge of the family and whatever, and they're fighting against Phoenix. So what will happen next? Tune in next week. Oh yeah, this episode ends on a big ass cliffhanger. Not a big ass cliffhanger, but still a big. Hey, come back next week for answers, although you're not going to get any. Okay, so general thoughts on the episode. This was an okay one. I think last week had a bigger. I like last week's episode a lot better, mainly because it felt like a more focused plot. In this case, we have to deal with finish up the comedian plot line. We have to deal with the Deadmans, or at least their remnants, with Oceletta and Aguilera. And then we have, obviously, Ikki and Vice, who, despite seeming like they should be the focus of the episode, are kind of sidelined in the middle of the episode. Like, basically, Vice is at the beginning, he cuts to the arcade, and he's having fun. Then we skip almost the entire middle of the episode, and he's back for the ending for the final fight in the episode. Now, yeah, I get it, especially because, Vice's main motivation was trying to keep Ikki safe by keeping himself out of George's and, by proxy, Phoenix's hands. So, playing it up as him going kind of rogue and having a day at the arcade, or the fun center, works in that regard. As well as it lets him do some things he probably couldn't have done with Ikki, because, he gets to play around and have fun at the arcade. Now, I do like this. I also like the fact that it doesn't, suddenly twist Vice's character again, because when the scans came out about the sounds for the Rolling Vice stamp, and one of the sounds was Betrayal's a Demon's Specialty, or something along those lines, people were questioning, what exactly does this line mean? especially considering the fact that we know this would be like essentially a hijack form in a way. But, in context of the episode, Vice just says the line, which is a cool line, said in a cool way, and would be really cool if this was a turn to evil, but it would honestly completely betray Vice's character that he's developed up until this point in the show. So I'm happy it's more of him using it as a trick to trick George and Phoenix, as well as an effort to get away from them, which apparently he can still put himself into Vice stamps because he stamps himself with the rolling Vice stamp to fly away, which that's interesting. Also, yes, Weekend were the ones who developed the rolling Vice stamp, most likely designed by Karizaki, in his, I guess, attempts to like either lure out Phoenix or bring them into a position to be taken down. Like, I don't see how getting rid of Ikki would impede him or help him in any way, because in fact that Ikki could probably be a pretty good asset, especially because, he can make Vice stamps too, apparently. But I guess, getting rid of Ikki, or at least testing the rolling Vice stamp on Ikki is a priority at the moment. Which, considering the fact that the main reason that the Igarashi siblings are at least somewhat against Phoenix right now, is the blatant experimentation that specifically George did specifically on Hiromi, you'd think that they wouldn't be down for any other organizations doing any more human experiments specifically on them. Considering the fact that they had the one family completely observing the Igarashi family, apparently their family name is Ishijima. The Ishijima family spying on the Igarashi family. I guess it does kind of make sense why they'd be more willing to experiment with the Igarashis, especially because of the father's apparent connection to GIF. With the whole heart thing and him reacting to GIF's heartbeats. So yeah, I honestly do like the whole let's just wait for them to show up here so we can beat their ass fight. Although it feels weird for those Celestials to just like walk away after he knocks them both out. Be like, nope, I called you both here to take you both out, but I guess I'm gonna just leave now, even though I've clearly won. Not even take a driver or something just to take you off the board. What was that show? There was one show. I forget what it was. It might have been Gaim, where it's like partway through the series, the villain started just like taking drivers from people. It might have been Gaim. I might be mistaken it for another season. It was a season where there were a lot of drivers around. It's not Saber, because that wasn't towards the end of the series, but that did also happen in Saber. When a villain just like, I won't kill you, but I will take away your driver, and so you won't be able to be a threat to me. Kids show technically you can't have them just out and out murder people because they're the villains, and you have had them out and out murder people. Osaleta has taken out at least 3 people just with that fucking gift stamp. But yeah, I guess this is all part of some weird plan of Osaleta's, or his boss, who was the head of Phoenix. So yeah, the fight, it was really cool to see Kagero again, and the consistency of the whole rider kick switch thing. But it still feels really pointless because he just shows up to see the evil shoot for like not even 5 minutes. It was like 2 minutes, and then he's back in again. Like, it would be cool if we could get some actual switching between live and evil. And just because it would be cool to have live and evil switch with each other every so often, like maybe mid-battle. But the slow turn that Kagero's having, mainly based around him wanting Curry, I like it. Like, I like that his original whole deal was, I want to kill Ikki because of Daiji's inferiority complex. Now his whole deal is, I just want Curry. Like, he switched, like, his main motivation switched to Curry, in me, feed. and I'm kind of happy with that, just because, simple motivation. Simple motivation, that's all we really need at times, even if it's a very slow heel turn. I also like Aguilera's I'm being very soon right now, and I won't admit that I'm really worried about my only friend left in the world, and Sakura, who's also maybe my only friend. I do like this kind of weird bond her and Sakura continue to have, and I really hope that Sakura gets to be the one to take her out. If that means death, if that means kicking out her demon, I don't care which. I just want Sakura to be the one to do it, just because it feels like that would be the culmination of their bond, instead of Ikki basically doing a kill steal on her. Sort of like how I felt that Hiromi should have been the one to take out the chameleon dead man, if only because of his whole deal. But Ikki stole that kill too. Even though I did like the episode and I did like the kill still, I still feel that Hiromi should have been the one to actually do it, if only for narrative purposes. So yeah, again, overall, I feel this episode's good for the most part, but again, parts of it are lacking, especially that whole middle section. And I haven't talked about the comedian plot. Obviously, I wasn't a big fan of it. It felt like a really rushed mystery, especially when it's revealed that it was the assistant character. Her motivation was just, I was a fan, and then you guys stopped doing stuff, even though you were the reason they stopped doing stuff, apparently. I don't really know. I might have missed some parts of this plot line. But I do find it interesting that she used 2 Vice stamps, because I remember going back to early in the series when they mentioned most people could only summon gift juniors, and how having someone who could just make a regular dead man is super rare, but having someone who can use 2 must be like drawing a fucking 5-star. Just a one pull, just a 1 pull random 5-star. So, do I dislike it? I don't think it 100% breaks the lore. Because, again, she could just be one of the super rares who could do that. But we also don't see any super adverse effects of her using the 2 Vice stamps on herself. Which, hey, hopefully they'll address that. They did address the prisoners that were being held on the Phoenix Skybase, although I feel she's more of an episode of the weak character who probably will never show up again, despite the potential significance she could have. Especially if Osaleta somehow gets a hold of, another way to make more Gift X's like himself, or at least some Gift X's that could be useful to him in the long run. Because, he would have to rebuild his whole power base again. Because, in fact, he literally at the moment only has the Demon's Driver and a handful of cultists. And I guess down Aguilera. But again, she's basically going about her own business of, I want Gift Sama. So, again, overall, fine episode. I like that it progresses the plot in very small ways. I like the rolling Vice stamp. I like the fact we didn't get a major heel turn to Vice that would feel completely random. So yeah, pretty decent episode, not the best. I think last week's episode was a bit better. Give Kid Girl more fights, and that is all I have to say on this one. See you all next week for what I hope to be a very plot important what's definitely going to be a very plot important episode, but hopefully we'll get some cool leaks, or at least a hint of stuff to come, especially because people are already hacking the Demon's Driver.